Pues todo rolling.
Good evening, everyone. After holding the attention of millions of TV viewers this summer, the recent pause to the January 6 hearings into the attack on the Capitol have turned attention now to the Department of Justice and Attorney General Merrick Garland to provide what could be the next act in this American legal, political, and constitutional drama. With outside pressure mounting for indictments of Mr. Trump and some of his inner circle, I sat down with the Attorney General today for an exclusive interview. The AG dismissing accusations his office hasn't moved swiftly enough to build cases against those near the top of the ladder, and telling me concerns over further tearing the country apart would not deter his office from holding those criminally responsible accountable. Let's start off and talk about January 6th. We've just watched weeks of some pretty horrific testimony about what led up to January 6th and what happened that day. Just as an American, can you tell me what your impression was of what we heard?
It's an important part of democracy that every American recognizes the truth of what happened on January 6th and in the time surrounding it. I think that this is an important part that we not downgrade or suppress how important that day was, and I think that the hearings did an extremely good job of reminding us, and for people who didn't know in the first place, telling us how important that day was and what a risk it meant for our democracy.
Is the committee offering you anything in terms of an informal roadmap? Are you learning things you didn't know?
The Justice Department has been doing the most wide-ranging investigation in its history, and the committee is doing an enormously wide-ranging investigation as well. It is inevitable that there will be things that they find before we have found them, and is inevitable that there will be things we find that they haven't found. But the Justice Department has from the beginning been moving urgently to learn everything we can about this period and to bring to justice everybody who's criminally responsible for interfering with the peaceful transfer of power from one administration to another, which is the fundamental element of our democracy.
You said you're moving quickly at this. There's been a lot of criticism, a lot of pressure that the DOJ is kind of behind the power curve here, behind the committee, not moving quickly enough on what appears to be solid evidence in some cases.
As I said, we have been moving urgently since the very beginning. We have a huge number of prosecutors and agents working on these cases. It is inevitable in this kind of investigation that there will be speculation about what we are doing, who we are investigating, what our theories are. The reason there is this speculation and uncertainty is that a fundamental tenet of what we do as prosecutors and investigators is to do it outside of the public eye. We do that for two important reasons. One is to protect the civil liberties of people and events that we're investigating, and the second is to ensure the success and the integrity of our investigation.
Would a criminal referral from the committee carry a lot of weight? Would it be welcomed by the Department of Justice?
So I think that's totally up to the committee. You know, we will have the evidence that the committee has presented, and whatever evidence it gives us. I don't think that the nature of how they style the manner in which information is provided is of particular significance from any legal point of view. That's not to downgrade it or disparage it. It's just that that's not the issue here. We have our own investigation pursuing through the principles of prosecution.
You said in no uncertain terms the other day that no one is above the law. That said, the indictment of a former president, of perhaps candidate for president, would arguably tear the country apart. Is that your concern as you make your decision down the road here? Do you have to think about things like that?
Look, we pursue justice without fear or favor. We intend to hold anyone who was criminally responsible for the events surrounding January 6th, for any attempt to interfere with the lawful transfer of power from one administration to another, accountable. That's what we do. We don't pay any attention to other issues with respect to that.
So if Donald Trump were to become a candidate for president again, that would not change your schedule or how you move forward or don't move forward?
Say again that we will hold accountable anyone who is criminally responsible for attempting to interfere with the transfer, legitimate, lawful transfer of power from one administration to the next.
How is your department dealing with the pressure? Every day you wake up, there's a column in a newspaper talking about what you will do and when you will do it.
The only pressure that I, or my prosecutors, or the agents feel is the pressure to do the right thing. That's the only way we can pursue the rule of law. That's the only way we can keep the confidence of the American people in the rule of law, which is an essential part of our democratic system.
I caught up with the Attorney General.
But go to Roland. Welcome to the Gilchrist Now that comment, I've personally been waiting a long time to hear this, and Graham has even been waiting longer, because this should have happened a long time ago. Everybody's saying, and a lot of people think this is caused by the pressure of everybody wanting to know what the Attorney General was doing. So now that he's exposed that he's been working on it all the time, as we well see, now what happens from here? We have enough evidence. Everybody's seen the six. Well, let's hear from our audience. Joining us today is an old friend. We watch him grow and get older and graduate from Morehouse. We had him here since he was 16.
Yeah.
He's, what, 23 now?
Yeah.
So.
Got the gray hair.
It's a piece of pillow fluff.
And young lady, Kirsten.
That's my girlfriend.
His girlfriend, Kirsten, forgotten her last name.
Harris.
Harris, I'm sorry. I'm getting older.
No, man.
I'm
No
an
way.
old man here.
No way.
But this, I'm sure we're going to hear from Graham first. Now, Graham, this settles a little of the anger. Of course, we were all looking for this a little earlier than it happened. But it's important that it came out now, that we've publicized his errors. The last hearing that we heard, I'd like to hear from Kirsten. What do you think about all this? As a young female in our society today, what do you think of this?
I think, such an egregious, it's really a crime. I think it's disgusting that somebody of that kind of caliber who had no political background, we know it's kind of like collusion with, the American people to put our safety at risk, especially as people of color. We know that, even during the pandemic, hate crimes towards Black people increased by 2 and 3% more than any other race. So, conspiring with the American people, especially, racist white America, to make sure that people of color, transgender people, women are considerably being put at risk higher than any other group. It's dangerous, allowing people's point of views to be validated, point of views that are, putting other Americans at harm. I think it's about time that we have that conversation and not just, brush things under the rug anymore and allow people like Donald Trump to get away with his behavior, because what message is that sending to our people? I think it's really, really wrong that this continues to happen under our watch. Yeah.
The abortion issue we'll deal with a little later, and I'm sure you have a lot to say about that.
Yeah.
Okay. But Graham, give us your take on him finally bringing the true attention that we need to Donald Trump.
Well, he's taken a step.
Okay.
And I want to see the journey. He sent out a memo last week that there would be no prosecutions of any kind, basically, against the candidates running in the subsequent election. The campaign starts next year for the 2024 election.
But that's something that Barr put out.
Barr put out, but he sent it out again. So he is going to be the only one to determine whether or not they're going to prosecute a high-level candidate if it's
But
Trump.
what did he say here?
Well, this is my point. That's what I'm getting to.
Okay.
He said one thing last week and he said something else here.
Okay.
Because if you've committed the crime, it doesn't make any difference to me what your position is. I don't care if you're running for president and it's the day before the election. If you
Right.
committed the crime, you need to be dealt with.
Right.
See, remember, Trump said, I could shoot somebody on Fifth Avenue,
6 years ago.
and it wouldn't make a bit of difference. Now, I did cases, yes, and I've done cases where we've gone for months doing an investigation. Nobody knows what we're doing. We get the indictment. I get an indictment arrest. I go pick up the body and take them into Supreme Court. Boom. And I did that with a guy. I had 16 indictments on him before I even arrested him. So I understand the process. But it wouldn't take me a year and a half to put a case together. Especially when, and we didn't have video and all of that stuff. We didn't have Facebook and Twitter and all that when I was doing these cases. These were hard cases we worked on.
Well, this case
He
is-
has video evidence. And this is not about January 6th. That's another thing I want to get to.
That's, he said, he did, you know, that
This is
doesn't,
not
it's not a
about
subject.
January 6th. We have to go prior to January 6th.
That's why it's taking so long.
See, the election itself, the phone calls that were made to Arizona, North Carolina, and I think Wisconsin, that's all part of this.
Right.
January 6th was a culmination of this conspiratorial act involving not just Trump, Lindsey Graham, and others in the U.S. Congress. So yes, they have a large number of people to investigate, but I want to see that he names these people and charges these people under the U.S. Code as to their overt acts, regardless of the election. I don't care about the election, because if you're not going to prosecute high-level people who are committing crimes, you have no right locking up the everyday person on the street. I had cases with police officers. You rape this girl, you're gone. It's not about giving a guy a break. You were gone.
Well,
I sent a
this-
PBA delegate to state prison.
This-
It doesn't make
this-
any difference, and it shouldn't make any difference here, regardless
But
of
he
the
said,
campaign or
the
not.
only pressure he felt was the pressure of doing the right thing and doing it right. That's why he's taken so much time, and there's so much out there.
Well, that's
Trump
not
has
pressure.
done,
That's your
but
job,
Trump has
to do it
done
right.
so much wrong. There's so many ways you can hit him. You have to find out when you hit him, you hit him from all sides. Everybody has. This is a conspiracy of the Republican Party.
Yeah.
They want to change the governmental structure. They want to turn everything around. They're looking to take over the House so they can drop all this stuff come
Right.
November. So our concentration has we got to stick together as a team the way they do.
And the
They don't
voting
talk
rights
about
issue,
each other.
the voting rights
they've
of all
got
these
one
37
item.
states, he hasn't dealt with that. That's got to be dealt with too.
It's so much. That's why it's taking so much time. I'm happy with him coming out the way he did. Because of the fact that I always felt he had to be doing something. I mean, just as an American to watch this, as Kirsten say, this is nonsense. I know anybody that doesn't know anything about anything can look at this and say, this man is wrong as hell. He's always been wrong about a lot of stuff. Why aren't they doing anything about it? Julian?
Yeah, I think everyone's such incredible points. I think it's really something that's difficult to analyze because there's so many questions and ways in which we can look at this issue, right? You're bringing up a great point. Why is this taking so long? And it's a question about how far have we gone from our norms?
Mm-hmm.
How do we perceive power so differently, right? Where we even have a question about whether or not this can be done. Has Trump changed our norms so far that we're similar to China or Russia to our appeal towards a strong man? And do we even believe, because of the stagnation within our Congress, that there's even power within like our institutions? You know, Trump could call for anyone to attack anybody, but it's for the as Kirsten's saying, some of the American people going out there and protesting themselves. Arresting Trump or putting Trump behind bars is such a small part of the problem. It's what has the state done? How far has it forgotten people to the point where they feel like they can go march on to the Capitol, tear down the Capitol, and threaten to kill senators? The state has promised so much to people. They're not receiving help. People's financial situations are getting worse. Social Security is not going to be around for a very long time. Yeah, go ahead.
Look what it's doing to us as a people.
Definitely,
It's
yeah, I'm sorry.
demeaning our whole right. You know, we as blacks, we
Right.
just want them to go by the rules which they preach. They
Right.
never have in our situation, so it's always
Right.
wrong to us.
Right,
It's
right.
always been wrong to
Right,
us.
right.
So, but when you would get people that are going back to the Nazis, and nowadays it's Christian nationalism,
Right?
where are we going with this?
People feel
Now,
disheartened.
Trump is a
Yeah.
son of a Klansman.
Right, right. Well,
right.
It's of a symptom. I mean, people feel disheartened. They feel like the state isn't for them. I mean, you have a lot of African Americans that are saying they're going to vote for Trump if he runs again, right? I mean, because they were promised things with Joe Biden that they never received. I'm
that's
just
the
saying
whole point.
this is a part of the problem.
They're brainwashed
Yeah.
to believe that the Democrats never did anything for us. They're like the Dixiecrats of old.
Yeah,
Biden's too weak.
Yeah.
He's a punk. All right? And then you got this attorney general that sits on it for a year and a half. And you got these crackers running around like they rule. And bringing back Nazism, that's what bugs me.
yeah. I mean, you got to look at the American people's pockets. Inflation is on the rise. I mean, you know,
But can
the
you
supply
blame
chain
Biden for
issue.
that?
The president does not control
No,
the
def-
financial status of the country. We have had depressions in this country in the 1800s where, going back to the Federal Reserve,
Right.
Jefferson was against the Federal Reserve because it's not a government entity. And he was told by the power elite, you either back off or we'll invoke a depression in the country.
Right.
It has happened more than once. These depressions have nothing to do with the body politic, Democrat, Republican.
Exactly. Yeah.
These guys are not running the country. You live in a capitalist society.
Yeah,
These are the people who are running the country, the businessmen.
that's
All
right.
right? This guy, the billionaire that's pushing the vaccines, and Elon Musk and these people. And I mean, these guys are rich. They're not that wealthy compared to other people around the world because they really aren't. The wealthy people, you don't even know their names. But businessmen run this country.
Right.
This is a capitalist society. This is not a democracy. Never was, never will be. This is a republic. The president doesn't run the country. He's the chief executive officer, but he's not the chairman of the board. And he doesn't determine the financial makeup and strength of the country. So, you got people wearing lapel pins with the American flag on them, but they have all their business outside of the country.
Trump for one of them.
If they were true Americans, they would manufacture their goods here and pay the people in this country
The
a
right
decent
dollar.
wage.
Yeah.
If these people, like Exxon and Mobil, as they went to Guyana year before last, and they're drilling oil in Guyana, if they were really credible, they would say, all right, we're going to pay you for your oil, but we'll build a refinery here so you people can get yourselves
In
up.
Nigeria too.
And same thing in Nigeria.
Yeah.
But they just take the resources, they bring
Yeah,
it here.
like
a
overtime.
gallon, a 55-gallon drum of oil is not for gasoline. It's for benzene. It's for kerosene. It's for turpentine. It's for about 8 different products. But they exploit people in other countries for their resources to make their money here. And then they turn around and want to charge me $5 for a gallon of gas, when the war in Ukraine has nothing to do with gasoline. Russia has nothing to do with our gasoline prices. We get 30-some-odd% of our oil from
I
Canada.
don't think you can say
All right? We only get 7% of our oil from Russia. All right? 7. So, for them to turn around and do what they're doing and charge people $5 a gallon, and people in outside of urban areas, they have to have their car. They have to buy gasoline to get to and fro because there's no public transportation.
Let me bring in one point about the Ukraine. Ukraine is the largest European country and the largest exporter of grain.
I'm talking, that's grain. I'm not talking about
But
Russian
this
oil.
grain, most of it's going to Africa.
That I understand. We didn't get to the grain yet. I'm talking
People
about
don't even
petroleum.
realize that.
Yeah, that's the food
People
belt.
don't realize that.
That's the food belt. But
That's why it's so
got
important
nothing
for
to
us
do with
to take a
Russia.
look at
Them
why all
hiking the
this is
price of
happening.
gasoline.
How come the Democrats aren't bringing out the fact of Biden should be blamed for inflation? That it is controlled by the Illuminati or whoever's running the
bankers.
show.
Can I say something? So we have to look at, for instance, right, the COVID policies that were put in place during the Biden administration, and even like what Trump did with the mass amount, like with the massive amount of checks, and then people not being able to work. Now, of course, that was done for a reason. I'm not denying that, but we're still facing the after effects. People receiving massive amounts of checks from the U.S. government, and then not being able to put that back into the economy through their labor. So that's what's bringing our prices up. And then we have massive supply chain issues.
Well, yeah, because
yeah.
everything is in China. Why are we manufacturing simple things like Q-tips in China?
There was. So I was reading
Why
this
are the
book called.
corporations making more money than ever?
So I was reading
There
this
you go.
book by. I was reading this book called Makers and Takers, and it's about how the U.S. economy has transitioned from a primarily like production supply chain or like a country, right, into like a consumer, and also because of the educated elite within our country, they encourage banks to basically like create these like weird loans, which caused the '08 crash, and also these major corporations like Apple are not producing these great products anymore.
They're not
working
paying
at-
taxes either.
They're
Here's the
working
point.
and they're working as banks in and of themselves. They're providing
the point.
loans.
Yeah.
So it's stagnating the economy where we have a fiat economy that's not based off of product, but it's based off of who's lending the most amount of money, who's flipping cash. Even our money isn't backed by anything.
Right.
So we have
That's
fiat
right.
money. So it's a hot system. And I'm not going to say the state's not at fault. We have major military contracts that we're constantly giving out. They're supporting wars. I mean, we're spending so much money on wars while we have wars back at home. So I'm not going to let the
If
country
you're
off the
running
hook.
for office, how would you present it to
I
the
wouldn't
people?
run for office. No,
Senator.
I got something else.
no. But I don't. I think the state is pretending as if they have more power than they do. Especially for African Americans, we've basically been like a tennis ball in this game. We're letting the events happen to us instead of ourselves
Add to it how
controlling
we
the events.
change it, because you're a changer, you're an
Yeah.
activist.
Well, you know, we think about ways in which we can get involved in the economy and the market. And we think about ways in which we can get involved in real estate investing. We think about ways in which we can have a voice. We have a great voice in our democracy. We have great voter turnout. We're really powerful people. But the thing is, like, we're waiting for someone to save us. No one is going to save us. Our issues
We
are
have
our
to
own.
save
We have
ourselves.
our,
Right.
Yes.
We are the second coming.
Yeah. I don't know about that, but
Coming of what?
no, I don't.
Of
No, I'm joking.
revolution.
Definitely.
Well, you used to think like that.
Yeah,
What's
yeah.
changed you?
Well, you know, I
I've
don't
got
have
videos.
You know what
talking
happens
like
to
that.
Gilchrist?
Okay.
I've seen, especially during the pandemic, our institutions have been so weakened. I've recognized that a little cold can wipe us out, and so we can't depend solely on our institutions to save us. We
No,
have to be
that's never
active
been a
change
fact,
agents.
though. And
No,
that's
but
never
the
been
thing
a
is,
fact.
not for you, but a lot of people are looking
But we
towards the
have to
state's
become
moves.
a part of that institution.
But we also need to
Can't
develop
run
our
away
own
and say,
institutions
oh,
too.
I'm not going to vote.
No, definitely not. But we also need to develop our own institutions too. We need to
Right.
have financial literacy.
Okay.
We need to have, for instance, you always talk about having parents that are active with their kids. We need to understand that we have to save ourselves.
Each one teach one.
Each one teach one.
You know,
Okay.
I think it was I can't remember where in Scripture, when Israel was taken into captivity by the Babylonians. God said, "You're gonna be here a while. So raise your children, marry off your children, plant crops, plant vineyards, build homes, because you're gonna be here a while." We've been here a while. We haven't been doing what we should be doing,
Right.
which is what you're talking about.
Right.
The Babylon was not taking care of the Israelites. That wasn't their function. The United States is not taking care of black people. It's not their function.
They never have.
These, you keep saying, oh, this is not who we are. This is exactly who they are. And we need to wake up and understand who they are and know who we are and deal with everything accordingly. You cannot totally disconnect from everything around you, but you can certainly sit down and start planning your own advancement in spite of what's going on around you.
Exactly, yeah.
I spoke with some brothers in Bed-Stuy years ago. Oh, you know, the white man did this. Ain't got nothing to do with the white man. What are you doing?
Exactly, yeah.
All right? White man does what he does. What are you doing? Other than standing there, oh, the white man. Do the right thing in the movie with Robin Harris. He says, you know, that store was closed for 5 years. If you want to do something with it, you could have. I'm going over there and get me a cold beer from a Korean man.
Exactly,
So,
exactly.
I said to the brothers, you guys got your drinks, you got your smokes. So you're financing the well-being of people that despise you.
Right.
Yeah.
You're sending their children to private school by buying their products.
Right.
But you're complaining about them. Now, I can't get with what you're saying.
What about how we hurt each other?
That too. But I say you could take the money you're wasting on their products and stop being like a fly eating the crap in the system. Take your money, go to Home Depot, and we're in Bed-Stuy. I said, there's over $50,000 right there on the block waiting for you right now.
Right.
Go to Home Depot, get some navel jelly, which will erode rust off of ironwork. Get your
Graham.
red primer paint. No, listen, you don't need a college degree to make $100,000 a year.
You told that story.
I've told
4
it,
or
and I'm going to
5
keep
times.
telling it because the fact is that we need to start thinking out
You
of the
get
box.
people
true.
There
that
are
shoot you,
ways.
come doing something on their steps today.
I didn't say you do something, Winston, and I'm going to tell you like I said it the last time, since you were not listening. You go to the
I've
elder
listened
of the
to
block.
it 4 or 5 times.
That's why no one's going
And
to
it
shoot
doesn't
you.
work
If you go
today.
to the elder of the block, we'd like to paint the railings on your home, and that's your advertisement. And the people on the block see the work you're doing, and if it's good work, they're going to want you to do theirs, but you're going to charge them. You're not charging the elder on the block.
Can I add something to what you're saying?
So where are we going to do this?
Oh, sorry.
In Brooklyn?
Well, look, no. So to the point that Officer Graham is making, it's a question about, how do we as African Americans view ourselves? Do we view ourselves through the prism of race and the way that America has diagnosed our race issues as being like internalized towards us? Because I'm working at my law firm, for instance, and then they're like, oh man, it must have been so hard growing up. They don't know nothing about my background. They just see my race and they see the limit. But I'm in the same law firm as them. I never went to law school. I still work there. It's a question about whether or not, for us, can we see past the pain and the trauma, and can we look towards the opportunity? Can we look towards our environment and develop it and shift it to the point where we're not talking how bad Elon Musk is for avoiding taxes. We're thinking to ourselves, how do we create products that we have tax incentives too, where we create green energy for our communities? How do we put ourselves in the winning position? The game is the game. It's the way that it works. It's the way that it is. But
The way you see
black
yourself.
black entrepreneurs, black business, black leaders, we can think about this economy in a way that it could work for us. It can. Absolutely it can. I've seen it.
So the concentration is the way we accept ourselves.
Yeah.
How we see ourselves.
Yeah, there's no, like, for instance, for
If we're
me.
busy in records and everything and calling each other nigger,
Yeah, I mean, it's such a small way to view yourself. Like, for instance, if I see someone that's Asian or white or whatever, I'm not insecure. This is, if they have a business opportunity and I can talk to them and we can work together to develop something that's greater, to change, make an impact, I don't care what color you are.
right?
And when I look at myself, I don't see myself just as a color. I see myself through my mind.
Yeah, right.
Right? So
it's all mental.
It's all mental. So how do we
Right.
move past these mental blocks to really make a big difference? A lot of the time, I see people who have all the gifts in the world. Young black men in the 80s are some of the best entrepreneurs in the entire world. The only thing they were doing was selling crack. But it was just a bad product. But look at the ingenuity, the intelligence, the way they can think about distributors.
Wow.
If there was a way where they could
That was-
direct that energy in the
Crack
positive.
was planned genocide.
Totally true, and that I'm not denying
Planned
that.
genocide.
Wait, Mr. Gilchrist, let me say what I'm saying. It's true the product was bad, but the abilities and talents in which they had, if it was funneled to the right direction, could you imagine how much black wealth we would have by now?
What did they do with all that talent? Most of those ex-crack dealers became, rap?
Oh, no, they went to jail. Most of them went to jail or went to cemetery. They didn't all go to the
rap business.
No, but and you see how they transition. But it's the way in which we look at. It's not because the rap game, but the reason why is they're getting into business is because they're being introduced to different people, new things.
Quincy Jones was a spearhead of a lot of that because he took a lot of the young guys. He sat them down.
Exactly.
He said, you guys are wasting your time and your talent. This is business. You need to be doing something productive with your money other than buying jewelry and looking gaudy.
Yeah.
He sat P. Diddy down.
Quincy
And
Jones?
P. Diddy,
Yeah.
he sat with a group of them. P. Diddy is not some street Negro that
He
just
went to
stumbled
private
out
school.
of a. The guy went to college.
Yeah.
All right? Ice-T, Ice Cube.
Ice Cube. Ice Cube.
His parents are educators. He's college educated. He's not like most of the guys you see out here, stone cold knuckleheads, and they just want to rap. They have a background in education and business. The problem is that a lot of our young people figure they need to go into rap to make
Exactly. Yeah.
all right?
That's what's
they need to be a
available to
ball player to make $1. You know, it is so limiting. And there is no real test of your capability
Exactly.
in doing those two things.
Yeah.
So we have to give our young people exposure. Most of them never get out the neighborhood.
Right.
I was talking with somebody just yesterday on a project we're looking to put together here in the city. I'm not going
Right.
to discuss it on air. But we want to get the kids out of the neighborhoods.
Right.
They have to be exposed to different things so that they look beyond the stupidness they see on television. My friend, son wanted to be a ball player. I said, no, you're not going to be a ball player. Oh, no. That's modern day slavery. It's built on the slave system. I said, what you're going to do, you're going to get in the business of pro sports. You're going to become a physical therapist or an agent. And if you're an agent and you're picking up 15% of my salary, and 15% of her salary, and 15% of his, ultimately you're making more money than any of the ball players
Exactly,
are making,
yeah.
and you're not running up and down the court wrecking your body.
Right.
I said, you're going to get into the business. So I said, you have to think, it's not what's in front of the camera that makes the money. The money is behind the camera.
Yeah. I remember my mentor.
The main
yeah.
reason I have the youth here today
Right.
is because we talk of, you're 70-something, I'm 80-something. And now we have people in their 20s. Now, they survived the planned genocide of the 90s or the whole image of calling each other nigger and whatever they're calling ladies today. Well, how did you survive?
I mean, Kirsten knows my background and how hard it's been.
How about you,
so,
Kirsten?
I mean, I was lucky enough to have two very forward-thinking parents. My father
There you
is
go.
from the Astoria area, and then my mother is from Williamsburg. So firsthand, they saw, my mother will openly tell you, all my classmates are either dead, in jail, or had children as teenagers, and she did not want that for herself. They used to call her Ice Woman in school because she was so focused she would reject anybody until she met my father. And they worked very hard, and they were able to get out of where they lived. And now my mother is the dean of a school here in New York City, and my father is an accomplished musician, composer, and writer. And we live in, I grew up in Scarsdale, so I grew up in a predominantly white community, so they made sure we had no idea what it was like to grow up like that at all, and they kept us from that, even if it meant keeping us away from certain family members. So fortunately, I've had another set of problems, I guess, becoming accustomed to racism or other things that I experienced. I guess being forced into an extremely affluent community, being in only, for years, up until the 6th or 7th grade, I was the only black child in my graduating class at school. So I never really knew what it was like to
Be black.
Yeah, to be honest with you, outside of my own family members. So
Oh,
for a
that's
while, I
amazing.
had no concept of that until I went off to Spelman. So,
So
yeah.
how do you see the young women today
Um,
in this rap music, the way they talk about music?
I mean, it's immediately off-putting to me. I don't understand that. I was always, you know, I'm the only girl. I have two younger brothers. My father always raised us, you know,
How many
to
brothers?
two.
Two brothers.
Yeah.
Oh, so they protected you.
Well, I was the oldest child, but I could say, yeah, that they are kind of a protective figure for me. But, you know, my dad, he was in music, so he knows, you know, yeah, he's like, that's not a place you want to be in at all. I wanted to be in music myself just like him, and he sheltered me from that. So it's a very cutthroat business, and contracts that they put out now are just to take advantage of, you know, the musicians that are actually the ones making money. It's the executives who are making money.
That's right.
So,
That's right.
yeah,
That's right.
I don't stand for that.
So it's planned
at all.
genocide again in
Yeah.
music.
75% of rap tickets are purchased by white America and white children. So,
So let's go to the roll-in three. Roll-in three? Can we go to that?
Cousins in Scarsdale in the 50s.
Oh, beautiful, beautiful.
Is Roe a super precedent?
How would you define super precedent? Now, about Roe, which I think indicates that Roe doesn't fall in that category, and scholars across the spectrum say that doesn't mean that Roe should be overruled, but descriptively it does mean that it's not a case that everyone has accepted and doesn't call for its overruling.
As a judge, it is an important precedent of the Supreme Court. By it, I mean Roe v. Wade and Planned Parenthood versus Casey. Been reaffirmed many times. Casey is precedent on precedent, which itself is an important factor.
Senator, as the book explains, the Supreme Court of the United States has held in Roe versus Wade that a fetus is not a person for purposes of the 14th Amendment. And the book explains that.
Do you accept that?
That's the law of the land. I accept the law of the land, Senator, yes.
But go to roll-in. I played that for fun. I want you to see how these people lied. And they come from Trump, so what else can you expect?
Right.
Now, these lying suckers, you know, I want to cuss about that one, because you see what they did. As soon as they got in there, first chance they got is take away abortion. That's been a precedent which they spoke about there. Now, how does it feel, Kirsten, to see this hypocrisy here, right in front of your face? And if nobody watched the hearings, the confirmation hearings of these three judges, and you see that, just that one clip, and see the result of their lies to us as a people, American people, what does it feel like to be a female and be subjected to all this? After all the struggles you've been through, coming up black in America.
It's just, it's quite scary and it's appalling. After these many years that Roe v. Wade is getting taken away from us, even things like maternity leave, we got 5 years before we were born. We're so behind. You mean to tell me in Saudi Arabia they have abortion rights and we're getting ours taken away from us? Yeah. They're working towards being more progressive, and we're working towards being more conservative in terms of abortion rights, and that makes no sense. In the Middle East, even in Tunisia, they have family planning clinics, and they're outside Planned Parenthood here protesting against our family planning clinics. That makes no sense to me. In Israel, they have abortion rights. you know? So it makes no sense why America, which is supposed to be the best country in the world, supposed to be supposedly so progressive, is now hell-bent and taking those rights away from women. So I'm just shocked.
You're being a psych major, are you?
Yeah, my goal is to go into marriage and family therapy because that's really important to me, especially in the Black community.
Well, how does that psychologically hurt women?
Yeah, even if you think about cases in which women are raped or cases in which
Incest.
people incest, exactly.
Raped by your father and you got to have that baby
Exactly.
at 10?
And in
What
over
about this
20 states in this country, rapists get visitation rights. So you can still have some sort of
What?
relationship
What?
with the rapist if they so choose to see this child. So you'll be traumatized for the rest of your life.
Oh, God.
So,
That is beyond inhumane.
right.
I've never heard that.
Yeah, it is possible. I mean, in most cases, I'm sure the rapist would probably have nothing to want to do with the child at all.
How about going to jail?
Exactly.
I worked at a school when I was in college. It was a school for unwed mothers because in the 60s, you could not be a pregnant student and attend public school.
Oh, wow.
I had a student who was 10 years old. She was pregnant. 10.
By who?
I didn't get the backstory on that. But she
Probably
was
a
the
parent.
youngest student I
Somebody in
had,
her family.
and the kids went up maybe, and I would assume that it was a family member.
Sure, that's the way it happened.
10 years old. A girl is just coming into puberty, and she's pregnant. And I'm teaching, and I'm looking at these girls, and my mind is wondering, how did she get pregnant? How did she get? We know physiologically happens how it happens, but who did it?
Right.
You know, and that's over 50 years ago. But for a rapist to have visitation rights to see the child,
Is this in one particular state or
I think only 30 somewhat states.
30.
30?
They have, you can get the rights revoked if you so choose, but the other 20 somewhat states, you can negotiate if the rapist so chooses. And to your point about young women getting pregnant at the ages of 10, 11, 12, actually, that's a problem with us condemning and minimizing young girls for having sexual relationships or being fast, as people define young women, for having sexual relationships and them pregnant up into their early teen years and adolescence. Over 1/3 of teen pregnancies are happening with men who are over the age of 25, between the ages of 25 and mid-30s. So we have women who are being groomed and then being punished for being groomed by older men for having gotten pregnant, having a sexual relationship when their mind is not even fully formed. They haven't even finished K through 12 education, and yet we're forcing people who want to force these kinds of children to have children having children, basically.
That's true,
I don't know how you could allow something like that to happen.
Well, this one case, this guy, 27, was raped this 10-year-old who had to go to Indiana to get an abortion. And yet the Attorney General is trying to do something to the doctor. There's a case that's come up, isn't it, Julian?
No, no,
You know anything about that?
No.
You know anything about that?
Nothing, yeah, so.
Graham?
The victimization of women, especially in this country, there are people that want to, they talk about sex workers as though they are sanitation workers, police, teachers, whatever. Women wind up in the sex trade primarily because of victimization.
Exactly.
And the sooner they can get them, the better. There are girls that I've seen in Brooklyn, no more than 12 years old, on the Ho stroll. We have 11,000 people disappearing every year in this country. Where are these 11,000 people? And girls are abducted and moved around and transported and taken. It's the mental, the physical, the psychological damage that is done to them that keeps them in the sex trade. We saw it with Epstein.
That was.
You
no
see, you saw it
comparison
with
to what
Epstein
happens.
and the woman that just got convicted. That's the tip of the iceberg.
But that's Trump territory. I mean,
Just the
that's
same,
people
it's
with
just the
money.
tip of the iceberg. And
Even
the only
Prince
reason they did
Andrew,
something because
they
those are white
caught
girls.
messing with
That's it.
some of those
That's
women.
The rich
Yeah.
crowd.
So
That's
They're
the playboys.
They're
I
the
mean, if
white
you got
kids
money,
that
you're
they look
supposed to have
after,
a bunch
but
of
we
women.
have people who are missing
It comes with
and
the
they're not
turf,
found,
right?
and they're moved to other cities, and they're in the sex trade. And this is not a profession. Yeah, it's the oldest profession. This is not a profession
It is a profession.
where people need to be sporting around as though it doesn't have a negative impact upon women. It most certainly does.
Legalizing it takes a lot of the damage away from that.
I agree.
If you make it a little respectable, then it's a trade.
Well, you can legalize drug addiction. You can legalize drugs. You can
it'd be
legalize
better than what it
anything.
is,
Does
then.
it need to be done? No.
But it's done, and it's being done. It's better than slave trade.
It's not better because girls are still being victimized and taken into that business. What they call business. It's not business.
Well,
It's
you
victimizing
look
people.
at other countries, how it's
Physically,
10 times worse than it is here.
I don't care because everybody's doing
say
something is not a
everybody's doing it.
reason
I'm
to
saying
do it because the
different
fact that ignorance runs people, you got to lift them out of ignorance. And you don't do what somebody else is doing just because everybody does it. Doesn't make sense. A herd of
say anything
buffalo
like
are
that.
running and you're in the herd with everybody else, but you can't see the cliff until you get to it.
Yeah,
That's
the
why you have to have a
Officer
brain
Brown.
to step out of the crowd, get off and take a look and see, oh my God, they're running to the cliff. They won't know it till they get there.
Yeah, to Officer Graham's point, actually, with abortion, a lot of people's pro-life argument is that you should put your child up for adoption. But studies show that over 60% of children who end up in the child welfare system or foster care end up being then trafficked into sex trafficking, human trafficking, and become sex workers. And so they have no control over their life. And tons of women, I've heard many stories, women are saying the men come in, they have, clients from their johns, and they're not having proper hygiene. It puts them at risk for STIs and STDs, or they've been physically assaulted. So they have no control over their life, or they're forced to take drugs. So I do feel like sex work does need some sort of regulation because it is happening. And for the women who so choose to be a sex worker, there needs to be some guidelines around how that's going to happen and where it's going to happen, and protecting the safety
So
of those
psychologically,
women.
it's better if it's legalized.
Right, for the women who so choose. But to
Okay.
Officer Graham's point, the majority of these women who are being sex trafficked and then choosing to become sex workers,
Are forced into it.
right, because
Right.
they've been, kind of groomed since childhood to
Right.
do that. These are
Yeah,
people who have
right.
started in their teens, and a lot of people say, well, why don't you just leave? Because it puts them at risk to be attacked by the Johns or the people who are getting these clients, right, for the women. And then if they so choose to leave and go legit, if you will,
Yeah.
it could put them at risk. A lot of people who are criminals or drug dealers, they cannot, they cannot go to regular, escorts or sex workers because it can put them at risk to be exposed. So they're going behind closed doors to, engage in sexual behaviors with women who are being sex trafficked because that's all they can really get. They can't get it from general public. So it's putting them at risk to be involved with criminals and other types of dangerous people. And so if they go out and try to get a regular job, it's going to put them out at risk. God forbid they're homeless. It's going to put them at risk to get sex trafficked again. So,
Homeless, right?
yeah.
There is
So
a program.
You really feel it'd be better if there was some legalization of it?
Yes, I do. But, that's not to say that the majority of women who are in it because they want to be, and then those women should have the choice about whether or not it should be
And
regulated.
have protection if they want to
Right.
get out of it.
Exactly.
or like legalizing marijuana.
Right. That's why, you know, there's been a debate, especially with our generation. I'm not sure if you've heard of OnlyFans or Twitch. A lot of women now use that as a way to regulate their own sex work. So they don't have a John or they don't have a pimp who's regulating their clients. And a lot of men are upset about OnlyFans because they say, hey, you know, it's, you know, there's this pervasive sex culture, and now women are using that to, I guess, make a living. There's many people who have become millionaires and, you know, made a six-figure income off of OnlyFans. But the benefit to that is that keeping OnlyFans and things like that legal and not taking away those rights from women allows them to regulate how they're being shown, what their sex image is like if they so choose to continue the sex work, instead of having someone like a pimp controlling who they see, when they see them, how, you know, the types of people, the types of clients that they're getting. So I think that's where sex work should shift into, and a lot of former adult film actresses and former sex workers
internet?
Yeah, I think it's mostly part of the millennial generation. They're using OnlyFans, and a lot of former film stars, adult film stars, and sex workers are transitioning to OnlyFans.
Even Disney stars.
Disney stars.
Yes, Disney stars. So
That's fascinating.
yeah.
Yeah, it's crazy.
So it's legalized that way.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah, your own thing.
Yeah.
So you control what you're doing.
Yeah,
You
you
control
have
your
no
body.
boss or anything like that.
Like abortion.
Years ago, we used to.
It's interesting because I just heard of this.
Oh, yeah.
I never heard of this. You know, but
Yeah, I'm old school, you know.
years ago down the Lower East Side, we knew a lot of the prostitutes, and we weren't dealing in public morals. We were dealing in robberies,
Yeah.
grand larcenies. So the prostitutes would fill us in on who's doing the dirt,
Oh, wow.
because they don't want the Johns being victimized. Because if your Johns are getting robbed and beat up, you can't make any money.
Exactly, yeah.
And one young lady said to us, she said, Spoon, the guy there, he's got a gun. He's on his left side. The butt is facing out. I said, good, that means he's right-handed. And we followed the guy. He went into the Grand Street subway station, and he went for it. It didn't work out well for him. But the prostitute gave us the heads up. And it got to a point, there was a pimp that they told us about. And he was shooting up the women with heroin.
Oh, man.
Okay? Felony. So we sat and met with them, and we took them down for injecting 2 of them. We took him on 2 counts. He was gone. So they were able to get rid of him. You see, but again, women being victimized. There's another woman I spoke with. She was a legal secretary. And I'm like, you're a legal secretary. What are you doing out here? She said, well, I have a daughter, and I just don't make enough money, and I come out a few hours, and I'm like, oh, man. And just
So it's a
talking
lot
with these
going on.
women and getting the backstories. Yeah, it's again, we have to give our young people exposure to the
Right,
right things,
right.
to show them the options that they have in life beyond the trash that's being done out here.
Right.
There is so many, everything, you look around, sitting in this room, everything in here is man-made. The
Yeah.
table, the rug, the televisions, the
Right.
light bulbs, everything is man-made. So somebody has to make it, somebody has to have the skill, the understanding, and this is where we have to have our kids to understand there is so much to do.
Exactly.
Well, it's all about what you individually see as yourself. And I want to, in the last few minutes, I want to run item 4 and give Julian a few minutes.
Be nice.
Julian as a youth, or showing way which stimulators activism. I'll run item 4, we're only 3 minutes of this, because we're getting close to closing time. I just wanted you to see a little bit of this, Julian.
Yeah, younger.
15, 16 years old. I've grown up here. You guys have seen me. I've seen you. And you guys have always made this home to me. And I remember as a little kid, I'd always wear suits. And I'd always watch Harry Potter. And some things never changed. But you guys always accepted me and allowed me to be peculiar. And that's allowed me to have my own identity when I went to college. So I just want to say thank you to all you guys for that. And I didn't prepare any remarks because I really wanted to talk off the cuff and speak from my heart. And I remember thinking about the word Ujima before I got up here, and how that should be a clarion call to the United States of America. The idea of collective responsibility, the idea of a shared feeling of empathy, because we recognize that we are only doing as well when the most vulnerable within our society are doing well. Not just when the rich and powerful are doing well. In fact, as we know, when our society has a very few people at the top making most of the money, that's not a call for dreams or the sky's the limit. That's a call that's talking about an immense wealth income gap within our country. Our brothers and sisters here talk about what they're facing and what they're going through. And at Morehouse College, or when I'm in college in Atlanta, there are times when brothers and sisters think that they're successful or they've been gifted because of something that's going on in their own minds, that they're somehow more talented than somebody else. But they don't recognize the fact there are people that came before them, that lifted them up, that spoke to them, that put them in positions where they feel safe and comfortable, where they can be successful in that arena. I wanted to also talk about the fact of how we're organizing over at Morehouse College because of the lessons that I learned here at National Action Network under Ashton Sharpton and under Reverend Sharpton. We are students from Morehouse, Spelman, Clark, SCAD, Georgia State, and we went out into the West End community, a community that's been abandoned by Morehouse, a community that's been abandoned by Spelman, a community that's been abandoned by Clark. It's being gentrified. People are being pushed out of their homes. Generations of families, people of color, who made Atlanta theirs, are being told that they are now outsiders. I was speaking to Ashton Sharpton about what can we do in Harlem? What's the culture in Harlem like? What can we do to fight?
Come back.
Yeah, sure.
So we can finish that.
Definitely.
Your early beginnings.
Yeah, definitely.
You know,
Thank
when I met you, you were 16.
Mm-hmm.
I got a couple of those old shots too.
That's cool.
Well, as we see, this is our youth, and I'm glad that they could come today. He's going off to
University of Michigan.
University of Michigan.
Yeah, for law, yeah.
Tomorrow, next week?
Yeah. Well,
So you
this
won't be
weekend,
here next Wednesday?
I might, I don't know. It depends on if everything goes
Well,
well.
we'll see what happens. Well, we only, out in Manhattan, we only have a minute left for the Bronx. So say what you want to say.
Man,
You only got
dream
30
big.
seconds.
You got to dream big. You got to see potential in all things. You got to move forward, never let anything stop you. The world might be going crazy, but there's always opportunity in chaos. Figure it out, see what ways you can make a difference to somebody else, and just keep moving forward. Don't let anything stop you.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
What kind of law do you want to focus on?
I don't even think I want to do law for a long time, sir. I want to open up, I want to do a startup and make a difference through business.
Okay.
Yeah.
Manufacture some of this stuff.
Oh, wait, you're going to Michigan?
Yeah, that's why I'm going for
You
science.
only have 20 seconds, Graham. Can't go in this short story.
I got to put you in with
Power to the people.
Mims, Eric Mims.
Bless you. Thank you for coming today. And Kirsten, you were great.
Kirsten's amazing.
Yeah,
Kirsten's amazing.
We have to have
And
you
Spellman.
on more.
Oh,
Kirsten's amazing.
Peace
Kirsten's
and
amazing.
God. The God in me loves the God in you. Stay tuned for more of the Gilchrist Experience.